Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Now, before we get started, how about a little backstory? Now, ever since Cedric was young, he has been disrespected and has been treated like an incompetent bungler, even though there were a couple people who still believed in him, like his mother Winifred and his niece Calista. Thankfully, Princess Sofia was able to help Cedric make amends with several people, like his father Goodwin the Great during Mystic Meadows, and with King Roland during In Cedric We Trust. However, there's still one person who's still not convinced about Cedric's improved magical talents, and she's partly the reason why he's been treated badly, and that person is Cedric's sister, Cordelia the Conjurer. Now, like with Pin the Blame on the Genie, I was planning to blog this episode earlier this year, but unfortunately, it had to be delayed due to so many things distracting me. So anyway, let's get started. Airing on television on August 18th, 2017, this is Through the Looking Back Glass. And now, on for the plot of the episode. In this, Cedric's sister Cordelia and her daughter Calista move into Enchantia Castle while their castle is being renovated. Unfortunately, the two siblings can't get along. During their stay, Sofia and Calista find out a shocking secret about Cordelia, which was supposedly caused by Cedric a long time ago. So, the two girls go into the time-traveling looking back glass to take a peek into the past in order to fix the problem and help Cedric and Cordelia reconcile. Now, what are my personal thoughts on this episode? Well, to me, this episode was pretty good and it had an interesting plot point, but I don't really consider it as one of my favorite episodes due to it being a bit mean-spirited at times. And to further explain what I mean, let's move on to Mustang notes. Now, firstly, the episode's title is a play on Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice in Wonderland. Secondly, the moral of this episode is every detail is important, which I think is a very useful and wise lesson. Because if you leave out one detail, the story will look completely different than it really is. Now, what do I think of the animation? Well, in my eyes, the CGI animation is still excellent, and I kind of like that this episode involves time traveling, but instead of using a time machine, Sofia and Calista use a magical looking back glass, which is an enchanted mirror that can not only show the past, but it can also take people back to that specific point in time if they were to step through. In other words, you just go back in time and observe. However, like in Christmas Carol and Harry Potter, they are completely invisible, unheard, and intangible. Now, the thing that I find interesting, while Sofia and Calista are observing Cordelia's sorcery ball, which is pretty much a quinceañera, but for 10-year-olds, is that it reveals the real reason why Cedric has been disrespected all his life, which led to him becoming a villain for a majority of the show. You see, during that day, he prepared a serum which unfortunately ruined Cordelia's hair, and Cedric was blamed for the incident. But it turned out to be Cordelia's fault instead, making Cedric innocent all along. Also to note, during that same time period, we learned that Aunt Tilly was once the future queen of Enchantia, but her inheritance went to her younger brother Roland instead. This is later explored in the episode A Royal Wedding, which I hope to get to later this summer. Plus, I thought the final climax, where the castle is shrinking, was a pretty intense scene. And now, let's talk about the episode's song, Magic Touch, which is sung by Cedric and Cordelia while they argue over bringing her luggage inside the castle. Now, in my eyes, this song is kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, I do like the electric guitar rhythm, and the way it's sung is almost reminiscent to Shania Twain's I Feel Like a Woman. But on the other hand, the lyrics are a bit mean-spirited due to Calista thinking that she's more superior and treating her brother like a bumbling disaster. And now, let's talk about the characters and their voice actors. Princess Sofia is voiced once again by Ariel Winter, whom was young Kairi in the Kingdom Hearts game series, Marina in Jake and the Neverland Pirates, Macy in the Winx Club series, a few of Thumper's sisters in Bambi 2, Marlene in the complete version of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, young Trixie in Speed Racer, Penny Peterson in DreamWorks' Mr. Peabody and Sherman, and Smurf Lily in Smurfs The Lost Village. As usual, Sophia is a kind, compassionate, and helpful princess, and I like that Sophia still looks up to and respects Cedric, even after he betrayed her in the Day of the Sorcerers episode. Plus, during this episode, Sophia learns that Cedric and Cordelia used to be so close back when they were young, and she wishes they could be like that again, even though her dad, King Roland, believes it to be impossible due to that incident. Also to note, one of the most interesting plot devices in this episode is that Sophia's homework assignment requires dwindle dust in order to shrink a watermelon to the size of a grape. Next we come to Cedric's niece, Calista, voiced by Katie Zeef, who got to voice in the Little Angels series and Nick Jr.'s Digby Dragon. Now, Calista was introduced in the episode Gone with the Wand, where she joined Sophia and Cedric to visit the world's most powerful wizard, Merlin, and she had a habit of taking things that are red, like Merlin's Dragonclaw wand and a ruby. Anyway, during this episode, while staying at the Enchantia Castle, Calista wishes that her mom and her uncle Seti didn't fight so much. After seeing her mother's hair and being told that there was an incident several years ago, she and Sophia used her magical looking back glass, which was given to her as a birthday present some time ago, and they watched her mom's sorceress ball go horribly wrong when her mother's hair was ruined by a magic spell gone wrong, and Cedric was blamed for what happened. To me, Calista is still an adorable character, and I think her magic skills are very talented. Plus, I like that she doesn't take things without asking anymore. Also, my favorite scenes involving Calista is where she and Sophia show Cordelia and Cedric what really happened, and where she helps her uncle Seti reverse the shrinking spell and return the castle back to normal size. Next up is Cedric the Sensational, voiced by Jess Harnell, aka Wacko Warner from the Animaniacs series. To me, Cedric has become a very talented sorcerer over the course of the show, and during this episode, I find him to be very sympathetic due to how he's been treated since the day of Cordelia's sorceress ball. Plus, he says it himself that the incident wasn't his fault and that he was able to do the magic smoke spell perfectly the first time he tried it. Finally, we come to Cedric's sister, Cordelia the Conjurer, voiced by Rachel McFarlane, Seth MacFarlane's sister, whom has voiced Azarine in the Mystic Isles special, and she got to voice in her brother's raunchy American Dad series and Cartoon Network's The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Now, Cordelia was first mentioned in the Curse of Princess Ivy special when Cedric tells Amber that she would steal his stuff all the time, and she was introduced during the episode Gone with the Wand, where she left her daughter Calista with Cedric and Sophia while she went on a spa day. Anyway, during this episode, ever since her hair was ruined on the day of her sorcerer's ball years ago, Cordelia assumes that Cedric can't do anything right with magic and that anything he touches will end in disaster. In my eyes, while she is a talented sorceress and she's obsessed with looking good for others, I think Cordelia can be a bit dislikable at times due to her constantly bickering with Cedric and rearranging all of his supplies. But thankfully, when Sofia and Calista showed her that she was the one who bumped into the table and knocked her fancy hair potion into the smoke serum, Cordelia realizes what happened to her hair was really her fault, not Cedric's. And after setting the castle back to normal size and restoring her beautiful hair, Cordelia finally admits that her brother does indeed have great magical talents, and they make amends as siblings and as close friends. And now, on to my final words. Overall, Through the Looking Back Glass is a pretty good and interesting episode, but not one of my personal favorites. Yes, I still think the animation is great, and I like the time traveling and observation scenes. Plus, this episode gives great character development for Cedric due to his backstory involving the smoke serum incident. Sofia and Calista made a great team together, and Cordelia, while also sympathetic, is kind of obnoxious due to her constantly bickering and misjudging her brother. If there's anything this episode teaches us, it's to never automatically assume the worst from people whom you know and take the time to figure out what's going on. As for my final rating, I'll give it a 77% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me next time where we celebrate Father's Day in the Pride Lands. Mustang Power.